Previously,
it's with
We addressed this on
sylabdul.
previous episodes that, and I've been saying this for the past couple of years, that Zack Snyder will do DC again. He's still interested in it. He has not moved on, though people that seemingly hate Zack Snyder, they keep telling us he's moved on. But the the information we're seeing is that he is not. That he's still interested, and he's said it in so many words that, hey, if he had a chance to do DC again, he has a story in mind, a project in mind that he would do. I feel that will be him completing his story, and I talked about that again, just why I lean that way. So him, yes, Zack Snyder has a new film he's making, The Last Photograph. He knows when he says anything about DC or posts anything, it gets a lot of attention. So it's like a twofold thing. I definitely think Zack is keeping the internet burning because he is making a new film and he wants to cause that conversation. So he's definitely getting the attention and promoting his new film. But then also too, again, he's reminding people, hey, Ben Affleck is still Batman. Henry Cavill is Superman, and then you have Gal Gadot posting a Wonder Woman related picture, acknowledging people, with their Halloween costumes, dressed up as Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot got into the fray as well, and on Instagram, posting that Wonder Woman related, or a picture of her as Wonder Woman. A few days ago, Zack reposted this Batman picture, a picture we saw a few years ago, but Zack is just pointing out the camera he used for it and saying, Ben Affleck is Batman. And then right before I started recording this, Zack put another Henry Cavill related picture. It's insane, the conversations that Zack Snyder can easily spark up. And he's very capable of doing that. And SnyderVerse is still in the conversation. And as soon as Zack again is able to do anything, I believe he would be able to do DC again. I strongly believe that. And we'll just keep the hype train rolling. Now, what I will say though, those who seem like, I don't want to say intimidated, like it's some weird energy that you see online, where it's people they're thinking this is threatening James Gunn's DCU, or Zack Snyder's just stringing people along. It's like, no, I mean, like I said, Zack has said he would do DC again, and he told you what he would do, or at least the concept of the story that he would do. So Zack has never hidden that he will do DC again. So that's one thing. Being a DC Comics fan growing up, more prominently a DC Comics fan, we understand the concept of multiverses. And like I said, Elseworlds, Zack considers his SnyderVerse an Elseworld from what the main DC wants to do. So this isn't threatening anything. That's just like being threatened that Matt Reeves is doing his own world, right? That's not what's happening. I mean, they're not threatening each other. So why can't you do a SnyderVerse? Why can't we get the Schumacher cut? Why can't we get David Ayer's original Suicide Squad film that exists, right? So I just think people just get nervous. I think it's just hey, they hate Zack Snyder. They're uncomfortable with these conversations, but I think all this can coexist, and everybody can just relax a bit. Hey, it seems like all these options has a connection to the SnyderVerse, so that's true. That is true. But just overall, Netflix, a lot of people are excited for that because Zack currently has his contract obviously with Netflix, and he's doing multiple projects. So Snyder fans overall will be like, hey, they will restore the SnyderVerse if Netflix gets it. Do I believe that? Do I believe, with all this is if, right? If we get to next spring and Warner Brothers separates from Discovery and Netflix puts a bid and they win, they outbid everyone. will Netflix restore the Snyderverse? I can't say no. I can't say that they would not do it, right? Because it's obvious. You know, if you have the rights to DC and you have a good relationship with Zack Snyder, so this was not the scenario with, with the old regime of Warner Brothers. They have DC, and they, you know, Toby Emmerich, Hamada, they didn't have a good relationship with Zack Snyder. So if you replace that with people with Netflix, and would they give Zack a shot? I mean, sure. Now, overall, I just, you know, and again, we're talking about merger, so they would still, in effect, allow Warner Brothers to run itself. It's just they would have operating, you know, power over them, ownership over them, I guess. But they will allow the studio execs to run the theater. It just, you know, your checks are coming from Netflix, and then Netflix will keep their streaming thing going, and it will be a domination. So a lot of people saying, "Oh, Netflix will ruin theaters forever." No, because again, this, you got to think merger. Just, we own this company now. Y'all run y'all thing. Now our board, we will only, again, our radar will only go off if we're like losing money. We're looking at the books. We're like, okay, what's going on? Do we got to get someone else? So think more merger. So I wouldn't down Netflix like a lot of people are, because of, again, they're thinking of the theater experience will be ruined. But no, you know, again, they would let them run. Netflix will allow Warner Bros. To continue to run things sort of as is, but with that ownership of Warner Brothers, I do think there's a good chance, you know, Zach could be like, "Hey, can you throw me in there somewhere?" I think they would. I think they would for DC. So
It's Coffee Talk with SylabdulL. Give us a thumbs up and subscribe now.
Wake up in the morning, eyes crusty, heavy yawning. My phone keep going off, so I shut off the alarm and then head into the kitchen to get the coffee brewing. French roast with French vanilla, my own French revolution. Next movement is to tune into Coffee Talk with Sil. My girl is toss a yap if I tell her she need to chill. I hear enough of the yapping from all of these goofy shills. Plus I'm trying to be informed of whatever's the latest deal. For real.
recently, Warner Bros. Discovery just put out a letter to their shareholders, as there's a lot of anticipation of the sale of Warner Bros. Discovery, or the split and sale of the Warner Brothers assets. And so in this letter, it kind of touches on, you know, their goals and going forward in the future, but it has a few choice lines about Warner Brothers films and DC Studios directly as well too. So it's interesting to kind of peek at this. So as they're giving themselves a pat on the back for another strong quarter, they're talking about the success of a more focused approach to storytelling and content creation. And, you know, that's definitely a pat on the back to Pam Abdi and Mike DeLuca. But also, too, they shout out DC. They said a diversified slate of global tent poles like Superman, which, you know, obviously is from DC Studios, but it's distributed through Warner Brothers. Measured risk taking on original works. They mentioned the One Battle After Another film and the horror films as well too. Just Warner Bros. Has had a wonderful year, and this is a perfect time for them actually to merge, and that's really the language I want to continue to push throughout this process. That originally it was about Zaslav just flipping the company. That's what we talked about 4 years ago, over 4 years ago. And then something has changed with Zaslav, you know, him being in these Hollywood circles. Zaslav wants to stick around. So whoever decides to put up the money for Warner Brothers or Warner Bros. Discovery as a whole, part of that deal is going to make Zaslav co-chairman So this is definitely a merge. Now it could be a 51% to 49% thing. Let's say if Paramount buys WBD outright, David Ellison will be the man, but Zazev again, co-chairman, but under Paramount in that scenario. All right. So like I said, a perfect time for Warner Brothers to position themselves. People was kind of taking the sell like, oh, Warner Brothers doing so well. Now they're just going to give it to someone else. I said, no, this is a merge. This is another financer coming in to foot the bills. That's what this is about. Now it has a line here for DC Studios specifically. And the language they're using here is pretty consistent on, what we've been reporting here, what's been heard about their current thoughts of DC as they push forward. Again, whoever buys Warner Brothers and then turn DC Studios, all together, it looks like the execs will remain intact, at least initially. And again, if the performances, if they perform up to par, then these teams will stay together. But again, if they totally fumble, then you can look for some changes here. So it says here, importantly, with its first theatrical release, Superman, DC Studios marked a new era and critical first step on its 10-year journey. So we're back to 10 years now. To deliver fans a fresh and cohesive storyline across film and television, while bringing new heroes and villains to the surface. And so interesting, this Zaza originally, was selling this new DC as a 10-year arc. Then it seemed to be walked back a little bit, like 6 to 8 years. Now in this official letter to the shareholders, they're reiterating 10-year journey. Interesting. It kind of shows, how James Gunn has started off with his DCU, with more character-driven stories. I talked about the epic scale that I liked of the DCEU with Zack Snyder, with the SnyderVerse, where, we were on the ground running. Man of Steel has some epic battles, and it only ratcheted up more in BVS until you got to Zack Snyder's Justice League, and then it was all about, Darkseid, 5-part arc. You had other films on the side of this, the Wonder Woman, Aquaman, the planned Cyborg and Flash film, etc. But this epic storyline was just, going big, going early with the DCEU. And in contrast, the DCU is, like I said, kind of a grounded approach. I got a chance to watch James Gunn's Superman again. And, again, that's in my rotation. I watched that film and, understand what it is. It just felt, I hate to say it like this, but it was almost like a streaming show. It just felt, kind of, very ground level. But I'm saying all this to say it's kind of making sense how Gunn is really focusing these character-driven stories, because we're just starting this 10-year journey. What they hope, is a 10-year journey. As it says here, Superman is building the foundation. Then you have Peacemaker, Creature Commandos, very, very like just, surface level stories. And I think it will scale up, as we go. Like you think with the MCU, you start off with, of course, Iron Man, a very personable story. Captain America, First Avengers, again, surface level building blocks. And then they got, world ending level when you get to Avengers. And so it takes time to build up to that. So what Gunn is doing, it's kind of making more sense. And that's why I'm looking forward to 2026 for DC. because we get more storytellers, more content to discuss. But let's continue here saying, again, building on Superman's foundation. Upcoming DC Studios projects include Lanterns, which will debut on HBO Max in early 2026. So that's going to be, I think it's going to be an exciting time. I think they're going to aim, to be like, Penguin level of storytelling for Lanterns. But again, with constructs, and I've been repeatedly told you're definitely going to see some cosmic elements. It's not going to be just them walking down the street on the show every day. For the series, it's going to be, they're going to spend a little money. It's going to look pretty good. So looking forward to Lanterns. You got Supergirl and Clayface, which are scheduled for a theatrical release in summer and fall, respectively. And Man of Tomorrow, the follow-up to Superman, which James Gunn is currently writing and will again direct. We remain incredibly excited about the momentum at DC Studios and its prospects to reconnect with fans and ignite the next generation of these beloved characters. Interesting how this is worded. And I know people will point out no mention of of Matt Reeves' Batman Part 2. It's still coming, folks. I hope people don't overreact to that not being mentioned. But as far as specifically with the DCU, things, though it feels like, like I said, ground level, it's going to ramp up. Definitely let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts of these the words for Warner Bros. Overall, but specifically DC? As I've been told, they seem pretty happy with this initial, first wave of DC. Which was this year, 2025. This was the Gunverse year. It may have landed, with Guns fans, maybe some of the general audience. But I think those who are on the fence with like just James Gunn style DC, I think 2026 is going to be a refreshing year overall. As it says here, they're trying to reconnect with fans, and that's that whole fractious DC, conversation that people have. That's a real thing. Instead of really rebuilding the DC fandom, it seems like Gunn is just saying, we're just going to see, who's the audience, who shows up for Superman. Now we got the numbers. Now for them, it's about building on that. You definitely want to scale up Man of Tomorrow, I feel, for like the spectacle level. But like I said, 2026, it's about, these other stories for DC. And as I said, I'm excited because I'm seeing what they're doing in the comics, which is really exciting for DC Comics right now. With I'll be talking more comic books specifically. That'll be popping up on the Geek Network channel. We're gonna rope everything as far as like my shorter videos all under the Geek Network. Link in the description. And we're gonna talk more comic books. So I'm very excited for comic books. We're gonna talk games and animated, DC animated. I think it's gonna be very exciting in 2026 as well too. So like I said, if James Gunn is not your cup of tea, mixed with DC, if that tastes bitter to you, but you're a DC fan, I think next year's gonna be really refreshing, man. So I'm really looking forward to, just DC overall. Now, fresh off the presses, as I was recording this episode, the new trailer of the Michael Jackson film dropped, where I think it's like his nephew playing him or something like that. It was saw some pretty cool shots of this film, showing some potential. So let's check out this trailer. First look at Michael.
I know you've been waiting a long time for this.
Universal.
The tracks are made. The songs are ready. Let's take it from the top.
Oh man.
This is your story. Honor your past.
Wow, this is huge.
Embrace the future. That's what people want.
Oh man. Bro, this film just feels epic already. I mean, first off, Michael is the greatest entertainer ever. I mean, I love Prince, Stevie Wonder. Michael, all of them's probably larger than life. Michael was like something bigger than Earth at one time. Turn this down. We gotta turn this down.
Q, can you lower the lights for me, please?
Okay, but remember, in here, keep those feet still, my man.
Not to laugh. This is gonna be huge. This is exciting. What are we thinking in the comments? Coming out April 24th, 2026, and IMAX as well. I'm there. I'm there for that. Michael, as we shift back to DC here, James Gunn made some recent comments that I guess kind of caused a stir online a little bit. I'm wondering, just James Gunn's constant presence on social media, it just seems to be causing more chatter or even confusion than I think it's worth. I mean, everyone realizes with Kevin Feige doesn't, tweet or anything like that. Not saying everybody should do things the same way, but it's just you see how Feige is not so present or accessible online. And then when these events come up, Feige drops stories and keeps people interested in Marvel, even during Marvel's down years. I just like the way that Feige has interacted. Now, James Gunn is his own person, of course. And at times people like him being so accessible. In the beginning, it felt like, okay, he's a DC Comics fan like us, and he can, correct things or, whatever is needed. But it's getting to the point now. It's like, I don't know, Gunn. Maybe just don't talk about DC until there's a real announcement. It's time to do press for an upcoming release. Because this post here, I think seems innocent enough. We kind of can pick through this here, but he was commenting about a video where it's talking about Brainiac and things like that. And that's another thing too. In the video that he's mentioning, the YouTubers, I guess, theorizing about Brainiac and what he could potentially do in the DCU. And Gunn is like, the Brainiac stuff is cool. Don't read too much into that part of me reposting. So like, this is what I want to say. First off, we understand Man of Tomorrow. It's basically Lex versus Superman. That's kind of the structure of the film, where Lex, finally gets to fight Superman directly with the power suit, and then they team up versus a greater threat. That's the BVS model right there. The greater threat most people feel would be Brainiac. Now, this is my thing, Gunn, because I feel Man of Tomorrow, if it's being initially announced and sold as, this is obviously the continuation, the follow-up to Superman, the evolution of Lex, more of that story, right? I respect the number Superman has done, especially domestically, but this didn't blow the doors off. So if this is just more of the same, just a progression of that story, that's not the most exciting thing. It's cool that we're getting more of the story. If Brainiac's in that film, I feel you should lean into that more. That's just my opinion with the Brainiac. So trying to say, hey, don't read into Brainiac, but then if he's in the film, it's like, okay, why are you acting like he's not in the film. Like that would be exciting to know. Well, I can't tell you yet. Okay. All right. We'll see. This term, fandom flanderization, is interesting. And I'm looking forward to comments on this. And I'm looking forward to pulling comments and, having more of a discussion about this. It says how many fans believe some aspect of a character is the only true version, usually dependent on when they first came upon the stories. Think yellow oval on Batman's chest, all-powerful Superman, Wonder Woman made from clay, and how that potentially diminishes our enjoyment of stories outside of what we expect. This is an interesting point here. Again, people believing, some aspect of the character is the only true version. Like Batman doesn't kill, right? You see people complain about that all the time, though. In Batman '89 and in Batman Returns, Keaton Batman was a serial killer, and seemed like no one had a problem with that. And then it became more accepted that he doesn't kill. And then you had the Dark Knight Christian Bale version where it's like, I'm not going to kill you, but I don't have to save you. So they was kind of walking that tightrope. And then you have BVS Batman where it's like, hey, if you don't make it, you don't make it for Batfleck. So this is interesting. And this has kind of been discussed. It's interesting. Gunn is bringing this up and how the DC fan base has been fractured, for most of our lifetimes right now, these past current generations, because of this aspect. Oh, Batman can't kill. Now I'm upset. Superman snaps necks, but it was part of the story. All right. Now, if you just don't like the story, you don't like the story. But harping on, this character can't do that. Well, let's tell this story. As Zack Snyder would say, oh, Batman can't kill. Okay, well, let me put him in a situation where he has to make that decision, or Superman as well too. That's interesting storytelling to me, where you're coming in expecting a certain aspect and then it's turned on his head, right? That does, subvert expectations. And I know that's a bad word now after the whole Star Wars fiasco and Last Jedi. You don't want to just subvert expectations just for the sake of it. But if it's again, interesting story, I'm all forward. I'm wondering what y'all think about this again, and I'm gonna get to the controversial part of what Gunn is saying, because they're like Snyder fans. This is what we've been talking about since Man of Steel. That hey, let's this is a different version of the character. Let's see what happens. But people are so turned off, like, oh, my character can't act like that. But when you get to the end of the story, the 5-part arc, what Zack was trying to do, then you was going to get your all-American Superman, or all whatever righteous Superman. So that's interesting. He brings up a few examples like the yellow oval on Batman's chest. I mean, I don't know how many people was fighting over that, because you could have the oval, and then you could have just the black bat or whatever. I mean, whatever Batman Jim Lee draws, I'm good with. However that Batman, whatever that symbol is. All powerful Superman. That's an odd example, because people was bored. I think over the years are bored by just an all powerful Superman where there's no stakes really in a lot of his stories. And so, that's where that term, the Superman problem, comes up, because it's like, how can you make a story about him interesting? And then you got the kryptonite stories. And I think with Superman, you could do several things with the character. And like I said, I like how they did it in Man of Steel. James Gunn's version, I won't say, I guess depowered. I won't say depowered, but it kind of, the power scale is a little bit, less than the past. But I don't see anyone arguing about all powerful Superman. But this one here, Wonder Woman made from clay. This got a lot of people a little agitated out there. Now I saw Wonder Woman fans online. They were, I guess, a little peeved by James Gunn mentioning this. That basically they felt like he was trivializing the Wonder Woman made from clay aspect. Now, I'm going to be honest. I think I see now the feminist aspects of where she's formed from clay rather than born a god basically. It seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong in the chat with this, but the feminist aspects, they seem to prefer the whole made from clay story overall. And I didn't pay too much attention either way with the origin, but I will say the George Perez run of Wonder Woman is quintessential, Wonder Woman to me. This is kind of the point, I think, of this post here. Just when did you come into the stories? Well, for me, it was, it was a George Perez run. That was the first Wonder Woman run. Now I read it, retrospectively, but that's the first Wonder Woman run. I was like, I'm gonna just start from the beginning. I'm gonna go back and get the first issue and read through it. And in that one, she's formed from clay, and it's just like, oh, that's just part of the story. Now in the Patty Jenkins Wonder Woman film, then they kind of play with that aspect a little bit, but then she actually, was born again, of the gods there. So I was fine either way, but I'm just seeing this is a stickler for, I guess, Wonder Woman fans on Twitter, and they seem to be upset that Gunn again kind of, because they think these are like trivial things. Oh, the yellow oval on Batman, and Superman's all powerful. That's born to people, and then Wonder Woman made from clay. I'm good with it either way, but this is kind of proving the point. And this is the point, like I said, Snyder fans have been trying to make, for the last, 10, 12 years, that you could have some original twists to these aspects of these characters. The lore of all these characters, yeah, that's a template to go by, yes. But also, too, if you want to kind of twist the story a little bit for originality, I think that's a good thing as well, too. But at the end of the day, I mean, if there's either the story lands or it doesn't, and we can't really just be slaves to these particular aspects, but like I said, it's all about execution at the end of the day. Really looking forward to comments on this, because I think this is a good point that James Gunn brings up. And again, it reinforces all these arguments about these versions of the characters and the Snyderverse, and you don't like this. I mean, the DC fandom right now is a mess to the point where, I really want to distance myself from a lot of these fanboy wars, because it's not even about the story. It's not about the execution. It's just about, you want this one version. And if that's the case, then just go watch that one version or just read that one book. Because I want to see new takes on this stuff or new spins of it as well, too. So that's my take on that. Let me know in the comments below what you're thinking with all this that James Gunn is saying. And like I said, Snyder fans, we've been saying this for a while. This hasn't been fair for the past couple of weeks, man. Zack Snyder on Instagram promoting his new film, The Last Photograph. He's filming it and dropping, pictures of the last photograph pretty much almost daily. And then we have just randomly, Zack Snyder says, oh, I came across a SnyderVerse picture, and just drops it. And it's become just not fair, because whatever he posts on Instagram, if it's DC related, it's going to be talked about all across social media. People are going to lose their minds on this. And so this is another one showing Nightmare Joker. Again, this was when he was doing the additional photography in 2020. And so he drops this. And I want to kind of address, because people, obviously, when Zack Snyder is posting stuff, it's getting our attention. When he is just in the past, when he posts DC things, it's always been a reason, with Zack Snyder doing this, because this isn't, normal activity for him. He doesn't always do this, except there's just been moments where, are things happening? Is something going on? So I want to kind of address this, because I know there's a lot of speculation out there with these SnyderVerse posts, but I just want to appreciate what we're getting here. Nightmare Joker, amazing, right? And then he drops another Henry Cavill. Oh my goodness. It's not fair, right? It's not fair. What's going on here, right? So what do we think? So, a lot of people are drawing different conclusions of what they expect with the Snyderverse. And, we talked ad nauseum as far as with the past and what's happened with former regimes of Warner Brothers. Now you have this current regime, and you actually have DC Studios set up now under Warner Brothers Discovery. So just first, do we feel these pictures are signifying something happening regarding the Snyderverse behind the scenes? Well, interesting question. We do have to realize, like, I do want people to not lose the plot here. As I've always stated, I believe Zack Snyder would do DC again. He talked about doing Dark Knight Returns or a version of that story. I feel Zack was teasing that story actually in the Snyder Cut. And I talked about that at the end with the Bat Tank and everything. So I feel when Zack says Dark Knight Returns, that's him completing a version of his story. And I believe he will get that opportunity to do that. Now, as things stand right now, that will be through DC Studios. It would not be DeLuca and Abdi, making a decision. And it would be, again, under James Gunn. And I feel with James Gunn, and again, just how it's currently structured, we'll kind of touch on, the sale and stuff like that. But how things are currently structured, I think it's been well documented. James Gunn is sort of just worried about setting up his DCU right now. And we read that shareholders letter from Warner Bros. Discovery. They didn't even mention Matt Reeves' Batman, which is still happening. But they want to get this DCU off the ground. And then I believe we'll have a chance at David Ayer's true Suicide Squad film. And, I believe, Zack will have a chance as well, too. Just how things, again, are currently structured. Let's say Paramount buys Warner Brothers. Then the report's already out there. Paramount made sure it was out there. David Ellison wanted it out there that he would keep Warner Brothers largely intact, the execs, all the studios, including DC Studios. So no major changes. Again, they want to get the story off the ground. So if that's the case, what is Zack teasing here? I think Zack is just making it clear he is still interested in DC. I believe he's going to get a chance to do it again, right? A lot of people are taking these pictures as if something's going to happen this month, next month. I don't see that, right? I don't see that. I think the biggest thing that, again, I'm going to take from this is that Zack Snyder has not moved on. He's still interested in DC. And you see the attention he gets when he still talks about DC. His story's not done. And so, I believe there's a chance with that. Some people are taking the date of the Justice League release the 2017 the Justice League released November 17th, and they feel there's some significance, or they feel that they should trend or supposed to trend. Again, over here on my platform is not about setting some rules for people or or anything like that. I'm just going to give my take on it. I really don't see a reason to trend on Justice League Day. I mean, yes, I understand the history in the fandom that November 17th was in 2019 was the day the whole world, the Justice League called for the Snyder Cut to be released, where Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Momoa was all active. And at that time, we didn't know till after the fact that Zack Snyder was negotiating with, at that time, AT&T. They, owned Warner Brothers at that time, and they were the ones that pushed for the Snyder Cut to actually be released. They forced Warner Brothers to do it for content on HBO Max, and it worked. But so I understand November 17th in 2019 was a significant day. Again, that's the release date of Justice League as well, and it was just sending the message home. We want the real version of the story. Now, you fast forward to now, the Snyder Cut has been released. So, in a sense, we've replaced, or we've moved past, I feel we've moved past that date, November 17th, and its significance. Because at one time, the call was to, again, release a Snyder Cut, and that it's been released now. So I just don't see any significance. Again, people are going to campaign, going to tweet, and I mean, if it's an interesting message, I'll probably jump into it as well as for a restore. But I don't feel nothing's going to be announced on November 17th. And I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. Has Zach ever posted anything on November 17th in the past? I'm a little joggy. Maybe someone would follow them a little more closer than I did. I don't think he's ever posted anything on the 17th, on November 17th. But let me know for sure. He does he loves the Thanksgiving posts, the crisis turkey and all that stuff. But so I don't see anything significant happening this month. Now I'm going to get to a story where we're talking about Zaz's going to make an announcement. We're going to make it publicly known the plans for Warner Bros. Discovery. Zaz is going to do that next month. So in December, and they said specifically before Christmas. We'll talk more about that report. But that's about, again, the overall Warner Bros. Discovery decision. That is not a decision on DC. That's not a decision on SnyderVerse. I see people kind of linking this overall decision of Warner Bros. Discovery to something with the SnyderVerse. And again, just, if Zaslav announced, okay, we're going to sell everything to Paramount. Paramount's already put it out there that they're, and any company that buys Warner Bros. Discovery, they're going to keep the execs intact. So nothing's really going to change with that. It still will be, hey, when Gunn gets a few more DC projects out there, then I think he's going to allow, other visions, or like I said, the David Ayer cut and things like that. So I don't want people to get confused. Again, this is just according to the information we have readily available for us. Any decision about the sale, I mean, if Warner Bros. Is sold this year, it's likely going to be Paramount or Comcast or even the Saudis. And again, things will be kept largely intact. So that's not a SnyderVerse situation right there. That's the overarching story. So I just want to kind of touch on that. I mean, first, as I consistently keep saying, Zack Snyder has not moved on. He's still interested in DC. I believe he will do DC again and finish his story. I don't believe a decision will be made with that within the next month or this year. I don't believe any decision is happening right now. I just believe Zack Snyder's keeping this in the conversation, and people, his fans are going to appropriately continue to do that. So that's where I'm at with that. And let me know in the comments below. Like I said, it's definitely just not nothing that Zack is posting these things for. So I'm going to kind of rule that out as an option. People think, he just wants attention on his Instagram. No, longtime followers of Zack Snyder, we know like he is something. It's the reason he's keeping this in the conversation. But then also, too, I don't feel just something's going to be announced next month or this month. I don't believe that. So that's just my take with that. Let me know in the comments below. But these pictures go hard, man. It's exciting. Like I said, in the past, we've had these different picture drops, and it always gets us excited, and it always ends up being something. So that's just my take on that. So let's get to these articles talking about this impending WB sale, everyone that's putting in a bid, and what's going on. Just a short version before we actually get to the articles. Paramount still feels to be the favorite because, again, they want to buy everything outright, and there's some interesting tactics they're using to convince the shareholders to buy into this Paramount merge. Again, this is a merge, and but then let's talk about other companies as well, and then we'll get into that announcement Zazzov is looking to make before Christmas about the future of Warner Bros. Discovery. Very interesting times with this whole story. So let's dive in. Because again, I see a lot of takes out there, and we just want to stick to the information that's made for us, and it's readily available, verifiable information. And we're going to talk about these different bidders for Warner Bros. Discovery for this merge that's coming. It says Netflix and Comcast signals of interest in WBD streaming and studio assets, and chatter around wildcard Amazon suggests that M&A activity is just getting started. So M&A is merger and acquisition activity. Again, this is a merge. Are companies actually interested in buying all or parts of Warner Bros. Discovery? That's the question on the minds of Hollywood and Wall Street after the company put itself up for sale, citing unsolicited interest from multiple parties, though they were shopping it, but okay. For the record, the media giant's leadership will have the opportunity to address any developments in a strategic review head on during its third quarter earnings call on Thursday. And that's, I believe, happening as we kind of speak right now. We'll get some quotables later. And just in real time to reiterate, after the WBD shareholders call, the only real quote that came from there from Zazzov was he believes Matt Reeves' Batman Part 2 is terrific. So though it wasn't mentioned in that shareholders letter, and I just assume people's going to go crazy that it wasn't mentioned in that letter, where it's just talking about DC Studios and James Gunn's DC. Zazzov directly talking to the shareholders shouted out the Batman Part 2 and the Man of Tomorrow. Then, of course, we talked about Lanterns. That release window, it appears to be early 2026. So cool DC updates there concerning the shareholders call. As it says here, as we continue with this the first article about the sale and merge of Warner Brothers. It says thus far, WBD has rejected 3 separate takeover offers from Paramount for being too low. Meanwhile, Netflix and Comcast have suggested they're interested in the studio and streaming assets. And that's interesting. Is putting Comcast. We knew Netflix would only want the studio streamings. Comcast again had a chance to buy all of this already. And it seems like Comcast is holding out on the linear networks, the cable channels and stuff like that. So I wonder if that's going to take Comcast out of the running for the whole enchilada. We'll see. Experts who spoke with the Wrap didn't rule out Amazon as a potential suitor as the tech giant looks to continue scaling Prime Video and its advertising business. And again, it's all about IP. This is why Warner Brothers and specifically the studio streaming side, this is why it's so popular, because of all the IP that you can get from Warner Bros. Not just DC, but also like Harry Potter and stuff like that. So, and that's the more attractive part of all this. In real time, you're seeing the shares. Warner Bros. Discovery is up over $22, may hit $23 by the end of the day. We'll probably settle where it's at, as you see in real time. It's going to kind of settle at 22 and some change. Just people, these stocks were $6 a piece. These shares were $6 a piece like last year. Okay. And again, I'm not a professional tradesman or anything like that. It's just, I thought that was a good time to kind of buy into Warner Brothers. And those that did, you pretty much you're more than tripled your investment. That's always a good investment when you more than triple. You're happy just to be a penny over what you bought it. You may quadruple. As you see again, the live look. Again, this is not professional information. This is just 1 + 1 = 2. That's all. Both Zaslav and John Malone, who's chairman of WBD, said they express hope of a bidding war. It isn't guaranteed that one will ultimately materialize. But experts also pointed out that bidding for all or part of media giant is an opportunity to acquire premium content, global distribution, diversified monetization at a scale they may not be able to pass up. Now, yeah, everyone needs to take a look at this content, right? When this is up for sale, and now it is officially, you gotta give it a shot. Let's talk about the Paramount Pursuit, which again, they got to be considered favored because they're willing to buy it all. Chairman of Warner Brothers Discovery, John Malone, said he believes a takeover bid of $30 per share is possible, a target first pegged by Bank of America analysts, but thus far the company has only received 3 separate bids from Paramount Global, which range from $19 to $23.50 per share, and were rejected for being too low. And Paramount basically, they're saying, first, we don't have to overpay for this, first off. And the fact that they are offering $23.50 per share, and we saw the numbers up there in real time. Right now, each share is worth about $22, and it may go up. And if those shares go up, the price is going to have to go up for Paramount, right? A flat $30 per share rate, I think that equals out to be about $70 billion overall. Just to give you an idea of the numbers of all this. Interesting. There are rumors out there. I don't know if this article is going to touch on the Saudis, but it's rumored at least that the Saudis are willing to do the $70 billion, which would be the $30 per share or more per share. But right now, it just seems like Paramount is the only one who's publicly known to be bidding overall. David Ellison, CEO of Paramount, has argued the company would be the best partner for Warner, See, that's that language. That's that merger language. Yes, he would own Warner Brothers outright, but but it's a more of a merger. So not a hostile takeover. Like when Discovery took over Warner Brothers, they kicked out all the execs. That's not what this is. This is more merging, and now I'm writing your checks now. He added that other potential acquirers would need to overcome significant, perhaps insurmountable hurdles given their dominant market positions. In order to sweeten the bid, Ellison has offered Zaslav a co-CEO, co-chairman title. And I think, again, any company that Zaslav was settled on selling or merging with, this will be part of the deal. This is why people believe most of the things will be left intact. Mentions here, Ellison will look to merge HBO Max and Paramount Plus into a super platform. And that would be an amazing platform if Paramount gets this deal done. They also said the theatrical model is at the core of his vision, that a combined company will look to target an output of 30 films per year as part of his commitment to that model. Now, we earlier in this episode, we talked about in 2019, Warner Brothers, I believe, had 20 films in theaters at that time, and they got over 4 billion again in 2019. This past year, they only had 11 films. I think they'll get a couple more out this year, but it'll be less than 20. Combining with Paramount and Warner's together, 30 films per year. That would be very interesting. I mean, it's not going to be all blockbusters. You have some smaller films. Warner Brothers has showed, those low budget films, horror films, character driven, mixed in there would be interesting. Now, what about Netflix? Again, we talked about Paramount. Paramount's a favorite. They want it all. Outside the Saudis, it seems like everyone else just wants the studio streaming side, the more profitable side. But Paramount may not allow them to even have a chance if Paramount buys it all. What about Netflix? Will Netflix get in the game? Co-CEO Ted Sarandos infamously said of Netflix, "We're going to become HBO before HBO could become us." Fast forward to 2025, the streamer has gone on to surpass Warner Bros. Discovery in both scale and engagement. So he meant those words. Now Netflix has the opportunity to acquire the very thing it aspired to become, but will it? The company appears to at least be doing its due diligence, as it has enlisted investment bank Moelis and Company to explore a potential bid for the studio and streaming assets, and is reviewing Warner's financials. Like was said, I mean, this content, this IP, this is a once in a generation, once in a lifetime chance for all these companies to at least consider this IP. So it makes sense that Netflix is kicking the tires. Co-CEO Sarandos of Netflix said during the company's third quarter earnings call last month that the company has no interest in cable networks and is focused on profitable growth by reinvesting its business both organically and through selective mergers and acquisitions. Malone said a potential combination. This is John Malone, co-chairman of Warner Bros. Discovery. He said a potential combination between Warner and Netflix would give the latter studio a huge library and a second, more adult-oriented streaming service that they could bundle. So I guess it would be like Netflix definitely will want to remain separate from HBO Max. If Netflix was to buy the studio and streaming of Warner Brothers, you definitely don't mix it with Netflix. You keep that separate, and then you bundle it together. Unlike Paramount Plus is still trying to get up in the game. So it makes sense that they would just combine HBO Max together. Netflix, you don't mix anything with that. You keep it separate. Netflix has also had a taste of how WB content performs with its subscribers, thanks to a licensing deal that brought DC movies to a streaming service in 2023. So they know what's up with this IP. Now, it has been some skepticism of Netflix. I mean, I feel Netflix is a long shot when you compare it to Paramount and even Amazon, Comcast. If you even get to that point where you can just buy, the studio streaming side, and there's others who express skepticism. It's been argued Netflix will be spending billions to likely shutter the HBO Max platform, and Warner's global theatrical and home entertainment distribution, and scrap content licensing and wholesale relationships. Anything is possible, obviously, but this feels like a stretch, because you do got to consider, like I said, Paramount has a little bit more going for it. Comcast, for sure. I think Comcast will want to partner Peacock with HBO Max and do a super platform as well. Netflix doesn't need to partner with anyone, right? It's just about ownership, and just would it be counterproductive buying all these pieces? And I'm just talking about just the streaming studio side. Would it be counterproductive? So that's why there's some skepticism with the Netflix side, but no one blames them for at least exploring if it's possible. Now, what about Comcast? Comcast is a once in a generation opportunity. 4 years ago, this was the favorite. A lot has changed, obviously, coming out of COVID and how theaters are looked at now and how entertainment is distributed. Comcast kind of got cold feet, buying WBD whole, but they still are interested in the studio streaming side. But it says here, Comcast, if they were to bid on Warner Brothers, I mean, it makes sense, but it will face challenges securing regulatory approval from the Trump administration and beating the deep pockets of the Ellison family. So that's two things. The regulatory approval, all you got to do is pay the right people off. You'll get these deals through. It's all about money or some kind of wink deal. But Comcast will have to outbid Paramount and the Ellison family. Again, Chairman John Malone of Warner Bros. Discovery said if Brian Roberts of Comcast is willing to reduce his level of control, again, making this more of a merge, not a takeover, they feel a deal could be done and get through regulatory approval. And I believe it will. I believe it's possible. This is, again, showing Warner Bros. Discovery, they are looking at this as a merge. If you're not coming in to merge, if you don't want to partner, because, like I said, Zaza wants to stick around. So if you're not willing for that, then those types of companies will be not considered, for the merge. A deal with Comcast may be more complicated to get through the Trump administration than selling the entire company to Paramount. Going for just the studio streaming assets may warrant less regulatory scrutiny. But, again, Paramount is not going to give people a chance to just get parts. There is a scenario, let's say if Comcast, and again, I'm starting to feel Comcast may not be the move because it would be like a power. I don't say like a power struggle. It just, David Ellison is willing to straight up merge and keep things intact. Is Comcast willing to do that? Is Brian Roberts, is he willing to just merge and keep things intact, or fully take over, which is what he was leaning on 4 years ago? But one scenario is that Comcast could spin off its linear television stations with Warner Brothers, making that a complete television block, TV group. That could be a possibility. What about Amazon? What about Amazon? Right. This was my dark horse, and we're gonna see. We're gonna see what it do as far as what they're saying with Amazon here. It says Zazav and Malone have both previously said that the logic behind a merger would be to survive and compete against big tech. Experts who spoke to the Wrap see Amazon MGM Studios as a potential player that could compete with the financial firepower of the Ellison family. Definitely, Amazon could bring the money. But again, would it just be the studio streaming side? Seems to suggest, people saying, hey, Amazon could buy it all and then just spin off the linear television channels to another company, and separate themselves from the television stuff. But buy it all whole and then spin off yourself. Amazon has the pockets for it. The quote here says they clearly have proven they're willing to pay for IP. They paid a huge price. I mentioned for the Tolkien Lord of the Rings property. They got the James Bond. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity for Amazon to overnight become a major studio. And they're already taking steps in that direction. MGM under no circumstances would be described as a major studio. They do this deal with Warner Brothers, and now they're an elite company for sure. For now, WBD is continuing on with its planned split, or are they, as it waits for one more of these players to get into the game. Very interesting, all that's in play for this overall. And as I mentioned, we didn't really touch on the article where Zazav is going to make some kind of decision how they're going to proceed, if they're going to sell WBD whole, if they're going to sell it in parts. This is all going to be decided, as I said, before Christmas. So we'll touch on that article more probably on the next episode. But I want to get y'all thoughts, just going over these different possibilities. Who do you feel is favorite? Who realistically the favorite? I mean, like I said, I think Paramount is. I'm leaning less on Comcast now, but my dark horse Amazon, I think, can really come into the table, because if this is going to be a bidding war, Paramount has the inside track, and I think Amazon would be willing to go big versus them. So we'll see. We'll see. Very interesting stuff. And like I said, next episode we'll cover the WBD decision that's coming in December. That's really going to be a very interesting time and really telling going forward with this upcoming merge.
Let me give you more reasons to follow the homie Sil for the latest news, scoops, and moves he's about to reveal. From coffee talks to special brews, Hamada burgers for meals, a cup of bourbon with that tea that's about to get spilled. Like, what's the latest word? Yo, Sil, we need to know. Tell us what you heard. Yo, Sil, we need to know the ins and outs. Who's walking out, buying in? We need to know your thoughts on what's new, what you do to stream a hell of a show. Let's go. Take out your pen and paper, sit down and take notes. Sil is the realest, someone gon' pass the scavenging cutthroat. So, what's the latest word? Yo, Sil, we need to know. Tell us what you heard. Yo, Sil, we need to know the ins and outs. Who's walking out, buying in? We need to know your thoughts on what's new, what you do to stream a hell of a show. Let's go. One hell of a show. Let's go. Between DC and Marvel, they both have a startle. Disney's moving finicky, let's not mention Star Wars. All these movie execs be drunk off that power, disconnected from the fans in the ivory towers. What's the latest word? Yo, Sil, we need to know. Tell us what you heard. Yo, Sil, we need to know the ins and outs. Who's walking out, buying in? We need to know your thoughts on what's new, what you do to stream a hell of a show. Let's go. When they keep making the same mistake, that's what you call insanity. They can't even acknowledge their self-inflicted calamity. What's the latest word? Yo, Sil, we need to know. Tell us what you heard. Yo, Sil, we need to know the ins and outs. Who's walking out, buying in? We need to know your thoughts on what's new, what you do to stream a hell of a show. Let's go. One hell of a show, let's go. Scoop Senator, coffee talks, also covering analytics, making his own reviews, cause it's always been the critics. They clout chasers, money driven, repeating the latest gimmick. Come over to Syl Nation where true vision is given. Listen, what's the latest word? Yo, Syl, we need to know. Tell us what you heard. Yo, Syl, we need to know. The ins and outs, who's walking out, buying in. We need to know your thoughts on what's new, what you do to stream a hell of a show. Let's go. Let's not forget Mikey's son, always special to the crew. From day one when him and Syl got together for special brew. What's the latest word? Yo, Syl, we need to know. Tell us what you heard, yo, Syl, we need to know. The ins and outs, who's walking out, buying in. We need to know your thoughts on what's new, what you do to stream a hell of a show. Let's go. One hell of a show, let's go. I guess I finish on this note. When the niggas go flip mode, they turn gremlins, I'm gizmo. Come from my people, my kinfolk. For them I ride for and kill for. With this pistol I'm skillful. Shit can really escalate till it all goes abysmal. What's the latest word? Yo, Syl, we need to know. Tell us what you heard, yo, Syl, we need to know. The ins and outs, who's walking out, buying in. We need to know your thoughts on what's new, what you do to stream a hell of a show. I'm a watchman, forever vigilant, steady watching and listening. Disciplined, militant, killing these dudes that started visiting. What's the latest word? Yo, Syl, we need to know. Tell us what you heard, yo, Syl, we need to know. The ins and outs, who's walking out, buying in. We need to know your thoughts on what's new, what you do to stream a hell of a show. Let's go. One hell of a show, let's go.